What's up, guys? It's Toad. Better off dead. I'm back after about 30 minutes or so to talk NFL Week 2, which is one of my favorite weeks historically in the NFL because it's overreaction week where everybody overreacts to what happened in Week 1. And you get some pretty decent line value and situations where teams are just people think that teams are something that they're not after one game. After seeing one game, you think you know who these teams are. They are not who you think they are. And we just got done with the Thursday night game just ended. I gave out a lean this morning on Minnesota covering even the plus 6.5 or whatever it was. I think it got down to 6 or something, and the game just landed on 6. You could say that I was right about the plus 6.5. I think I got the pick'em pick right. I did not bet on the game. It was a bit of a crazy game. Minnesota, I think, had 4 fumbles in the first half, which is just insane. Like, you can't win a game when you turn it over 4 times in the first half like that. It's just completely ridiculous. But at any rate, one thing I forgot to mention, I just did my college football video, so go check that out. College football week 3. The East Carolina App State game, where I gave out East Carolina plus 8.5. One thing I forgot to mention that is part of the handicap there is that I mentioned that App State is coming off that big 2 overtime loss to in-state big brother North Carolina. But one thing is that now the situation flips because now it's an in-state situation where App State has sort of become the bigger brother in the situation because they've been the more like dominant team out of the North Carolina teams over East Carolina recently. So that gives East Carolina a little bit of more motivation there, as East Carolina is sort of the little brother to App State now in North Carolina. So the situation is flip-flop there. I'll just point that out. It makes me like East Carolina plus the points a little bit more in that one. Let's get to NFL. I guess I'll get the rant out of the way. I ranted about Texas Tech at the end of the college football video. I will rant about a similarly awful beat in the NFL last week. If you watch my video last week, I went 1-1. Should have gone 2-0 because the one that I lost was the New England Patriots. Even though I'm from Massachusetts, I hate the New England Patriots. I hate Belichick. Hated Tom Brady when he was there. I've been a New England Patriots hater since then. Can't stand those guys, but I bet without bias in that regard. I don't bet on the teams that I like or bet against the teams that I hate necessarily. So I bet on the Patriots plus 4, and that was the situation. If you watch that game, I think they threw a pick 6 early in the game, so that really just throws things off right away. It's free 7 points going against you that shouldn't happen on kind of a fluke thing. Then you get just the last few minutes of the game are just unbelievably frustrating, or the last several, I guess, because the Patriots fell down 11 after it looked like they were going to be possibly within the spread. They got back to what looked like they were going to be back within the spread late in the game with only a few minutes left, got the touchdown, but that put them within 5. I needed them to get to 4 to at least push. They, of course, go for 2 that late in the game to cut it to a field goal. They looked like they converted, but there was a holding penalty on it that called it back. So instead of being within 3 and getting the cover, and they probably would have covered at that point, they're down 5. They're missing the cover by 1 point or 1.5 points. Then it was all like the Patriots of yore, basically, like just the freak shit that like handed the Patriots games in the Bill Belichick era in the past. But of course, this is not the Tom Brady Patriots anymore, so they couldn't capitalize on this. But that shit just started happening again. Jalen Hurts, I think, on the first play after Philly got it back after that Patriots touchdown, fumbles the football on a run. The Patriots get the ball back in Philadelphia territory at like the 40, and I'm like, this is just like vintage, like Belichick era, just freak shit where the Patriots are just going to win the game now on this. What did they do? Oh, they just got penalized, went backwards, didn't even score. They still had all their timeouts, I believe, at that point, and we're still north of the 2-minute mark. Philly was just trying to run the clock out and had to punt it back to the Patriots one more time. The Patriots drove down into the red zone, and then it's like, now they're finally going to be able to do it. But of course, they do need a touchdown because they're down 5, but their last chance, they got yet this other chance. So they had a 2-point conversion called back that would have covered it. They started in Philadelphia territory after an immediate fumble and didn't even gain yards on the drive. And now they have it one more time in the red zone. They have to get a touchdown. They get backed up again, 4th and long. They get what was called a completion on the field for a first down on 4th down, but it was obviously a situation where the receiver, I forget who it even was, only got 1 foot down, very obviously, and that ended the game. Extremely frustrating. They lose by 5. Patriots +4 loses. Whatever. Let's get into this week 2. We got a lot of situations where there's overreactions, man, in week 2. And in situations like this, in week 2, I like to look I like to play on teams that just looked horrific in week 1. Nobody's going to want to be on these teams, and go against teams that like overperformed in week 1. And you have matchups where those teams could be playing against each other. Those are kind of the best matchups in week 2 that you can go for. And I got, all right, let's see. I'm going to go, I got 3 plays here, so we'll do that. First play I'm going to talk about is going to be in the early slate on Sunday. I think 2 of them actually are. First one we'll talk about Seahawks at Lions. And what do we have here? Well, we can see here again, I'm looking at ticket cash discrepancy here. You have Lions getting 62% of the tickets, but only 50% of the cash. So more of the larger bets are on the Seahawks, and this line was actually 5.5 at one point, so I didn't get the best number on this. It might have been 6 at one point, too, after it was 5.5. But what you'll see sometimes is what'll happen in a lot of cases in betting is you'll see, like, the professional bettors will come in when the bets are, like, lower limits, and early on you can bet, like, less money because the books don't want to take, like, a huge risk yet, and they want to see what's going on. The pros will actually bet the opposite side from what they want, which I think they actually did here to try to drive that number up. So they were trying to get the Lions up to like 6 or somewhere in that range, only because they know that they have enough like sway that the books are going to actually move the line because they know that these guys know what they're doing and they're pros. The books sometimes don't know if it's like a real move or if it's a setup. And in this case, it would have been a setup. So what they want to do is then get the line up a little bit more to get like additional value so they can then come back with their actual big plays once the limits increase at the books, and they can bet more money. They'll actually come in with their real play and bet more money at that better number on the other side, which I think happened here, and it took the number back down. It would have been better to get 6 on this. I am going to bet the Seahawks here. But I think it's okay to still bet. You can get 5 right now or 4.5. There's no difference between 5 and 4.5 really in the NFL. I'm going to be on the Seahawks +5. And after week 1, it's like, who's going to want the Seahawks? The Seahawks were the favorite. Everybody's hyping up Geno Smith. He got the new contract. But I think that all of that kind of led to a situation where the Seahawks were overvalued in week 1. Which is kind of what we saw. I mean, they were really flat in that game against the Rams. Nobody was giving the Rams any credit because the Rams have just really fallen off after they won that Super Bowl. They haven't been that good. Cooper Kupp was out. I think he's still out. The Seahawks, I think they just thought they were going to easily win the game maybe, and Geno Smith, this is his first, like last season was his like breakout season, and now he gets this huge contract. It's kind of a lot of pressure to come out that first game at least, and he just wasn't able to do it, man. And that was it. And they lost pretty badly at home. So now I think it's going to be good for them to get out of there. You know, they don't have to deal with like the fans shitting on them or whatever because they lost badly in that home opener, looked really ugly against the Rams. They get to go out and they get to play the Detroit Lions. And the Detroit Lions could not have looked any better really in week 1 as far as like what they did. They were on prime time last week, the Thursday night game. Everybody saw it, and what did they do? They went into Kansas City, into Arrowhead, one of the toughest places to play, and they upset the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Even though Travis Kelce was out, sure, that like dropped the line a bit on Kansas City. Still, that's a big win, and that's going to make everybody's anointing the Detroit Lions, man. They were hyped coming into the season. Everybody likes Dan Campbell. Former player, former tight end. He's good at hyping up his team. I think he's like fairly hilarious. He was hilarious on Hard Knocks last year. Everybody like loves this, but keep in mind, like Detroit, like they've had like some shifts in like who they have. They have like a rookie running back now. Like they've had some like kind of crazy like shifts in their offense. Jared Goff is their quarterback. He's been there for a little while now since the Stafford trade, but I really don't think Goff is that good. And I think their offense is not really that great. Of course, they're being overhyped because they're coming off that huge win over the Chiefs. And I think the fact that they have that long layoff, like people might say, well, they have the extra rest, so that's a positive. In this case, I'm not so sure because they're coming off such like a big win, that huge win. I think they might be like soaking it in and just becoming like just overhyping themselves really and just becoming a little bit overconfident coming into this and just have extra time to kind of be reading their press clippings. This is their home opener, but they're coming in, and we see that the line has gone up too. If you looked back, one of the things I especially like to do in the NFL is before the week's games start, I like to go see what are the lines. You can see lines for next week's games. So you can see what are those lines, and then after the games get played this week, how do those lines then change for those next week's games? So you could have looked at the line for Seattle at Detroit before any of the week 1 games are played, and Detroit was only a 3-point favorite. So the books are basically saying these teams kind of are about even, and we're only giving Detroit like the home field. Now we're seeing it's 4.5, 5. I think it was, like I said, it was up to like 6. We're overreacting here to that 1 week's results. The line's moved up a bit. I don't think you can put that much stock in what happened in week 1. Seattle, I mean, they're pretty good at in recent years of bouncing back after ugly performances, and that is certainly what happened in week 1. So everything in this one is pointing me to be on Seattle here. +5, Seattle Seahawks. That's going to be the first play. The next one right after that in here, and we can see what's going on in this one. Bears at Buccaneers. And what we have here, you can see there's lopsided action again here where the tickets are almost evenly split here, although we actually do see a majority on the Bears. A majority of the money is also on the Bears. And I don't necessarily want to be where the majority of money is because the books know that that's the case and they kind of want the money to be on the other side. But there is more money than the amount of action, the amount of tickets on the Bears. So that is telling me that there is a lot of professional money coming in on the Bears, and maybe the books kind of didn't quite get this right. They just don't like when it's lopsided to that degree. But we see here the Buccaneers were +1.5, and I think that was actually the line prior to the first week's games, I'm pretty sure, because I don't think we saw movement like this just after they put it back up just for this week's games. I think that goes back to the previous week. So you want to be aware of that. So this isn't really indicating that there's been a ton of movement just because the market is like betting the Buccaneers up. I think that was the books just move the line that much after week 1's results. So before week 1, the Bears are actually the favorite in this game. They're actually -1. So the books are actually telling you the Bears are actually the better team here. I mean, this is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, they don't have Tom Brady anymore, obviously. They have Baker Mayfield. I really don't think he's that good. And people, I think, are going to be overhyping them. Again, this is overreaction maybe because of what they did in week 1. And what did they do? They went into Minnesota, into the Vikings, who are generally seen as like a pretty good team, a contender in the NFC North. And the fact that they just played fairly well, fairly close against Philadelphia is going to make them look even a bit better here, the Vikings. That's going to make that Buccaneers win in Minnesota look even better. But if you look at what happened in that game, I think Minnesota had over 100 more yards of offense than Tampa did, and the game was like kind of close, so it wasn't like they were like trying to play come from behind and like, you know, just airing it out and gaining all these like garbage yards when they were behind. That wasn't the case. It was a pretty close game. Minnesota just turned the ball over a ton. So they outplayed Tampa statistically, but I think they had like they were -4 in turnovers in that game or something to that extent, 3 or 4. You just can't win an NFL game like that, man. Even though the Vikings are better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that outcome makes Tampa look better than they are. And then, of course, what happened to the Chicago Bears? I was against the Chicago Bears last week, of course, because I liked Green Bay being undervalued with the loss of Aaron Rodgers, going to the Jets, of course. Green Bay came out, and they couldn't have looked better, man. With Jordan Love, Green Bay went into Chicago and just annihilated the Bears. One of the most lopsided results of week 1. After that, who's going to want the Chicago Bears here? You got Tampa. They just beat Minnesota. Chicago looked awful. The Justin Fields hype is going to have died down a bit after seeing that. The Chicago Bears are not as bad as they look. No team is as bad as they look in their like worst performance, and no team is really as good as they look in their best. Everything is telling you, like the line is even telling you, they're not giving Tampa like the full like home field advantage here. They're telling you the Bears are actually the slightly better team here, man. And if anything, the line is just a little bit too big here. So we're on the Chicago Bears plus 2.5. That's going to be the play in this one. I like it. It's another one of those the teams that had those really ugly week one performances, and nobody's going to want them against a team that looked better than they actually are. That's the case here. And the last one I'm going to look at is going to be Browns Steelers. And this is another case where the favorite changed just because of the week one results. That the books brought this line out at a different number. This again is not actually the like market moving this. This was the books had to change the number because the look ahead here before week one's results actually had the Steelers as a -1 favorite in this game. So they are telling you the Browns are the slightly better team. We know the Steelers are a little bit down, but after week one, the line moved such that the Browns are a 2.5-point favorite, even teetering on 3 on the road. And this is Monday night. We have 2 Monday night games this week, but this is the one that I like a lot more from a betting perspective. The Browns, man, they're just way too overhyped. This is yet again another one of those games. You see these situations. What happened in week one? The Browns, and I gave them out as a lean, I think, on my week one video. I was very close to actually having a play on them. I liked the Browns in week one. What happened? The Browns looked awesome in week one. They crushed the Cincinnati Bengals. Everybody loves the Bengals. Joe Burrow. They made it to the Super Bowl. They beat the Bills in the playoffs last year after having beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs the year before that. Everybody loves the Bengals. They're constantly making these deep runs in the playoffs. Joe Burrow's amazing. Everybody likes Jamar Chase, that flashy offense, everything. The Bengals went into Cleveland and were held to 3 points, and Cleveland just dominated the game, just had the game basically start to finish. And now after that, I think that hype is going to have dwindled a little bit. Really not necessarily the hype on Cincinnati, but people are going to be overvaluing the Browns more so after that. Like, it looks like the Browns have arrived, man. Just kind of like with Detroit, it's like they're kind of being like anointed. They got Deshaun Watson now, and that is true. He only played like 6 games at the end of the year last year after being suspended and not being suspended for getting some happy ending massages, which can you blame the guy? He should not have been suspended, baby. I like Deshaun Watson, not just because I have him on my fantasy team this year, and he is living out every man's fantasy, my man. But he's going to be more stable this year for sure. I think their offense is going to be clicking more, but this is a situation where I just don't like it, man. They're coming off that really great looking performance in week one. I think they look a bit better than they are after that, and Pittsburgh Steelers could not have looked worse. One of the most lopsided results of week one. They just got absolutely destroyed at home by the San Francisco 49ers. We know the 49ers are really good. I thought they were the best team maybe in the NFL last year, the best team in the NFC. Brock Purdy is kind of becoming like the anointed one now. I mean, he made that really nice run filling in last year. I mean, he looks like he is a real deal NFL quarterback, man. But a lot of what the 49ers did last week was on the ground, too. But, of course, they had a big lead for, like, pretty much that whole game. But the Steelers, nobody's going to want the Steelers after that. They look like one of the worst teams in the NFL. But, again, it was a tough game. 49ers, very good team, one of the best in the NFL. Steelers, they are going to want to bounce back after this. And this is a situation kind of like with Seattle, where both of these teams are good at bouncing back after having really ugly performances in week one. And that is definitely the case here. Mike Tomlin has been a really good coach after a bad loss, especially when it's a game at home and then he has another game at home right after that. I don't know what he does, man. Maybe he's beating his players, beating their asses. I have no idea, but he's hammering them. He's good at turning that situation around. This is a rivalry that the Steelers have had the upper hand in for quite a while now, which, of course, it's a big rivalry. It's a big game for both teams. It'll motivate both teams. The Browns will be motivated because of that, but the Browns are just coming off such a great-looking performance. The Steelers looked so ugly. The line moved so much. You got to take the Steelers here, man. You're getting 2.5 points. They're an underdog, getting 2.5 at home, Heinz Field, Monday night. I think the crowd's going to show up. It's the division rivalry. I mean, there was a period of time where like Monday night home underdogs really like couldn't lose, and they were always like being like undervalued a bit. That time period is gone, and the books have adjusted for that. But in a case like this, you just have too much hype on the Browns after 1 week, and everybody's just shitting on the Steelers way too much after 1 week. And as you can even see here with these stats, like Deshaun Watson didn't really have to do much last week at all. Pickett, he threw a lot more passes, of course, but his performance was actually was fairly good. I mean, of course, Cleveland's rushing was a lot better than Pittsburgh's last week, but Pittsburgh was way behind, so they couldn't do that. I don't think that's going to be the case in this game. I think it's going to be a closer game. And yeah, I like the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the 3 plays I'm giving out here are the Seattle Seahawks +5, the Chicago Bears +2.5, and the Pittsburgh Steelers +2.5. 3 overreactions. I like all of these situations. You have, in all 3 cases, you have a team that looked better than they were, or better than they are in that one game in week 1 against a team that looked worse than they are by quite a bit. Just overreactions in both directions. Let's do it. Let's get it. That's it. This is my longest video of the year so far. I have fun doing it. I like talking about it. I'm autistic. I can't shut up. Anyway, I'm Tower Gang Toad. Go follow me on Twitter and go follow the Tower Gang Pod, the most offensive podcast on the planet. We are hilarious. Tower Gang Pod everywhere. We're on Rumble, YouTube, Odyssey. We're on YouTube while it lasts, at least. We have a locals. We're on Spotify as well, but not live. All the other ones we live stream to. And we have a locals if you want to throw us some support. TowerGang.locals.com. I'm Toad. I am better off dead. Or am I? Probably I am. But I keep living. I live just to do this for you guys, man. Peace out.